of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Congratulations on your appointment. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Leslie, your turn. Commissioner Lambert, please repeat after me. Yes, raise your right hand. Thank you. I, Leslie Lambert,
I, Leslie Lambert,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Planning Commission.
duties of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Congratulations
Wow.
on your reappointment.
4 more years.
Yay.
Congratulations to both of you.
Oh, thank you. So, yeah, it's nice to have you here, Alice. Always nice to have somebody under 50 with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Sorry, Sean, I'm not sure where you are.
Still got a couple of years.
Okay. Okay, so the next item is one I have been looking forward to with great anticipation, and that is the election of officers. So I get to pass off the gavel and the pea shooter to somebody. Is it appropriate that I do the nomination? Hello?
Next in the,
Okay, I nominate Vice Chair Landris to become chair of the commission.
second,
Do we do roll call or voice?
Roll call. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris.
Yes.
Sorry.
are you sure?
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
and Chair Lambert.
Yes,
Okay,
With great-
so
great relief. It's all yours, Sean.
we will do a little
What?
renaming.
Okay.
Good luck with the chat. Good luck with the chat room.
Is there a well, let's do the next piece and then circle back. But is there a motion to nominate a new vice chair?
I nominate Elisa Pastor as vice chair.
I'll second that. I second.
She's being voluntold.
Does she have to be here to say yes?
Yeah. Well, can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
and Chair Landris.
There you
Yes.
go.
Great. Well, now now is, I think, a moment to express our appreciation to our outgoing chair. It's been a pleasure to work with you, Leslie, and I'm sure other folks will want to say a few words. But I think I was reflecting on our work together over the last year, and I think the two things that come to mind for me are, one is your tremendous respect for the profession of planning, for the profession of the work that the city does and the work that the city staff does. And I think that's tremendously important. It's tremendously important both as a tribute to public service, as a tribute to the hard work and good work and dedication that we've seen from the staff, but also on behalf of the commission, because it's so easy for commissions and commissioners to come in and be in an antagonistic relationship. And you've done tremendous work to really highlight the professional relationships and the profession of planning. So that's one. And the other is trying to figure out how to say this, because you are, of course, someone dedicated to preservation and historic preservation, but you have no patience for nostalgia. And I think that is the hallmark of, your leadership here. And I'm very grateful for it, because you've kept us on track and kept us focused, and kept us heading toward the outcomes at hand pretty hairy situations. So my appreciation, and it's been a pleasure to work with you as your vice chair. So
Thank you,
yeah.
thank you, and good luck to you, my son.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Turn on your
you're
mic.
muted still.
This is just in recognition. I know Jim's been there, Leslie's been there, Nina's been there, I've been there. So being a chair is a pressure job, and I think you've done it very well. I think you've kept your cool throughout, and you kept everybody on track, which is hard to do when people are going on and on and on and on. And the other thing is that you've had a single-minded focus on housing, and that's something I think that you bring to the table that none of us really have with that same intensity and that same passion. I think it's a very valuable add to our commission, and I'm glad you're with us for another 4 years.
Thank you.
And I was just going to add, I was actually going to say something very similar. Your focus on housing and the importance of housing and the shortage we have right now has really been commendable. And I look forward to working with you in the next
Thank
4
you.
years on housing issues, because it's not going to get any easier or better for us.
I don't have anything to add to those fine comments, except to say that my cat has joined the meeting in your honor.
Where is he?
He's right there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's Mike, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Commissioner Raskin.
Yeah, just to add a few quick words. As you know, I've had the honor of joining planning commissions from the perspective of an audience member for much of the last year. And I want to send my thanks and appreciation for keeping the meetings moving forward in an orderly fashion, not keeping us too late into the evening, although I know you have had to wait late a few times, and really your commitments to advancing the cause of providing housing for all people. So thank you.
Thank you all. And I don't want to say I've enjoyed it. It's been a challenge, and I want to, and particularly to Jim, because I know that he catches this more than anybody, and that is my facial expressions. I'm really working on that. But sometimes I just get overly zealous about things and what people say, and it's not attractive, and I'm really working on it. Sometimes my eye rolling is like voice activated, so I can't control it. But I really will work on that in the future. And Sean, thank you for the call out on staff. I mean, I was city staff for 35 years, so I've been on the other side of the dais. And I think it's really important to respect staff, and particularly with the understanding they can't really fight back. And so they could be treated as badly or as well as they end up being. So I think it's important to carry on that tradition. We have an incredible staff. And I want to thank them for all their help they've given me over the past year. So with that, Mr. Landris, Chair Landris, sorry.
Well, again, thank you, Leslie. I want to say 3 quick things before we get into it. There may be more to say, but the first is I'm succeeding 2 terrific chairs. When I joined the commission, Mario made me feel welcome, and what I learned from his leadership of that year was no matter where anybody stood on a project, we all worked together to build consensus to make it the best possible application it could be, and then come to a decision about whether it was the right application or not. And I really think that I learned a great deal from Mario's approach to ensuring that everyone was heard and the best ideas came to the top. And similarly, from Leslie, as I said earlier, I think keeping our eyes on the outcomes, keeping our eyes on the prize, if you will, whatever the outcome was, but staying focused, staying directed on why we're here, what we're about, has been absolutely critical. And remembering that we are making important decisions and important policy recommendations to the council, and that is work we need to take seriously and stay focused on and focus on those outcomes. So I'm mindful of whom I'm following, and I want to be and I want to acknowledge that. I also want to say that this is now a majority of commissioners are now serving who did not actually participate in the drafting of the commission's mission statement. 4 of us joined since that mission statement was completed, and I think that that's very important in the life of a commission. Having had some experience chairing commissions, what I want to say at the outset is that I'm here to be your advocate individually and as a body, and I hope that over the next few months we'll have time to take another look at that mission statement. I hope that everyone will, so that we can figure out how best to live up to what it calls us to do, and maybe even take a look at our bylaws and make sure that we're on track with how we do what we do, to ensure that we're doing the best job as a body that we can. We've tremendously talented. I'm constantly have deep awe and respect for the level of knowledge that each of you brings. I learn from each of you every meeting, and I hope that we'll have the opportunity to continue to live up to the high standards that I know have proceeded for many years, but that I've witnessed under Mario and Leslie's leadership. And so with that, let us now turn, because I don't have a cheat sheet, so let us now turn to the planning director's report and find out whether David has joined us. If he hasn't, we can always come back to it. Or Jane can.
David has not joined us, but he will join us shortly. So I'll be giving the director's report today. And again, I'd also like to add our acknowledgement of Leslie's time as chair. On behalf of the staff, we really appreciate the way you've guided the commission through a lot of different important decisions, a lot of housing related work, and really have appreciated your support of the staff during this time as well. For the director's report for today, just to give you an update on upcoming planning commission meetings. So we do have a full schedule coming forward in October and November, so please mark your calendars. October 21st will be your next regular meeting. On that meeting, there'll be the CUP for the Calthrop School, which was continued from May, so that will be back. There will be an appeal of a ZA determination at 1012.5 Euclid Street. The red lines for the Promenade fast food prohibition will be coming back to you, provided that we move forward on the ROI tonight. And then also there'll be a vesting map for 5010 Franklin. I also want to note October 21st will be the first time that we will be test driving a new system for oral public comment. For this evening's meeting, we're going to go back to the reading of the email comments, but October 21st we'll be launching a new system that involves pre-registering to speak and people calling in through the Blue Jeans platform through the telephone. So that's a system that we will be trying out, and hopefully it works and is successful for us. November 4th will be the next regular meeting after that, and that is 2 projects on the 3rd Street Promenade. One is a development review permit for a roof deck on a restaurant, and another one is a CUP for a gym. There's a convenience market CUP and then a map extension on that meeting. For upcoming City Council, October 13th, next Tuesday, we have a number of items that Community Development is bringing forward, including revisions to the leasing requirements that are taking effect this Friday. So those were the new leasing regulations that establish requirements, four main requirements for all rental property throughout the city. Basically that all rental units, all leases must be for a minimum of 1 year. Units must be leased to a natural person. Units must be leased to tenants who intend Santa Monica to be their primary residence, and the units must be leased unfurnished. October 13th are amendments to those requirements that Council asked us to bring back in response to a range of public input. Also on that meeting is the extension of the elimination of the ELI, extremely low income option, in the Affordable Housing Production Program. This is an extension that is proposed to the end of basically to February 2022, which is sort of the maximum grace period for certification of the housing element. We have 2 landmarks-related items. There's a landmarks appeal and Mills Act contracts, and then there's the amendment to the bike action plan for protected bikeway networks. October 27th at Council will be an extension of the economic recovery IZOs to address some of the real-time issues we've been seeing with respect largely to loading and also some relaxation of standards at the pier. That's the director's report for today.
Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Jing, as you remember our last agenda meeting, Sean and I brought up what we think is an important addition to an agenda in late November, whether it's a special meeting or the second meeting, relevant. And that relates to some expository meeting about the housing element. I've been getting questions from people about what's going on, and I know the website's up and it's wonderful and what have you, but they really want interaction with the Planning Commission. And there are questions about how it's going, what the schedule is, and what the site inventory process entails. And I know you have something scheduled for December and January on the site inventory, but that's sort of after a lot of work has already been done. I think it would be really useful to get public input on it midway through that process. I know they have a lot of ideas that maybe, and this is not to say I don't totally trust what you're doing, because I do. But they need to understand what you're doing, and you need to listen to their, as do we. It's also a very convoluted process, and I think the sooner the Planning Commission understands it, the better everybody else will be. I found it complicated, and I'm a housing person. So again, I really urge you to do a study session on the housing element toward the end of November, again, whether it's the November meeting or a special meeting. The public has requested it, and I think it's really important for the commission itself.
Yeah, we actually, sorry, I didn't list that far ahead, but it's for the November 18th meeting. Will be a study session on the housing element. And I guess, we were just trying to limit kind of what's immediately ahead, but we will be launching, since we're bringing it up, a set of public webinars in November, and then, November 18th with the study session with the Planning Commission. It won't be like the whole, nothing is fully baked. It's really an introduction, to level set everybody as to where we are, explain how, what the housing element is, how it works. So we have kind of a process, that we will lay out in terms of how this is going to work and where public input can come in and whatnot. So that's the plan, November the 18th.
Great. Thank you so much for doing that. What I'm hearing, and it bothers me, is I think that there's some level of distrust out in the community of what the city is doing, and I don't think it's valid. What I know of your work and us, so I really think that needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. But I have total trust in what you're doing, and I think the city, the community needs to feel the same way. So I appreciate what you've done. Thanks.
And I would add, so thank you for that. For folks who are listening or watching, what I would add is that the city recently sent out, if you're on the Planning Commission mailing list, or the Planning Department mailing list, excuse me, you probably received an email on September 17th announcing the launch of the housing element process. If you did not receive that email, or if you have something you'd like to communicate, the email address to contact is housing update, all one word, HOUSING UPDATE, housing update at smgov.net. There is also a housing element website online at santamonica.gov/housing-element-update. And I'm reasonably certain, though I haven't checked, that if you go to the planning main page, you'll see a link to the housing element update. But again, santamonica.gov/ this is all lowercase, housing-element-update. Are there any other questions for Jing? All right, then we will move right along to, we have no minutes to, well, I see them here. Are there any Planning Commissioner announcements? Okay, any? We have no minutes to approve. We have no statements of official action to approve, so we will move on to the consent calendar. There are 2 resolutions of intention ahead of us, items 9A and 9B. We will be taking up the red line on these. Is there anyone who would like to hear a staff report, or can we move the consent calendar? Commissioner Lambert. You're muted.
My husband wishes he had a mute button. I move the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Commissioner Lambert, seconded by Commissioner Fresco. May we please have the roll call?
Sure. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
No.
Chair Landris.
I'm a yes, but I think we don't have consent for the consent calendar.
Does it have to be
So-
unanimous? Does it have to be unanimous?
It does not, no.
Oh, okay.
That was past 5-1.
Okay. Commissioner Reese, do you want to say anything about the no?
Oh, there was one I was supportive of and then one I'm not supportive of. So, and it doesn't really matter because they're going to come back in the future, but so I don't want to go back and re-vote it. But again, my focus was one I was supportive of, one I was not.
I understand. Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure you're heard. All right, we'll move on to item 10A for the first of our 2 public hearing items. This is 19 ENT-0468 and 19 ENT-0469. Both are conditional use permit applications relating to 1600 Santa Monica Boulevard. And could we please have the staff report? And before we do that, are there any ex parte disclosures? I can barely see faces because the screen just got really tiny. Commissioner Lambert is waving.
Yeah, I actually went over to the site this afternoon and kind of sat in the parking lot and watched one at 7th and Wilshire. But it looks safe, and there's actually a security guard, which I was really happy with.
Okay, and we welcome Vice Chair Pastor to the meeting.
Sorry, I'm late.
No,
Thank
you know,
Thank
you
for-
skip
Maybe not. I'm not
the
sure.
beginning, you get voluntold. What can I say? Any other ex parte disclosures?
No,
Sean,
Yes, sir.
I'll just highlight that I frequent that 7-Eleven to use their ATM. So I've been there many times, not specifically because of this case, but I've been there many times.
Okay. Don't see any others, so let us turn it over to Gina. Is it Gina who's presenting?
Yes. Can you hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
We can hear you. Yes. Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Gina Selak, and I'll be presenting the case before you tonight at 1600 Santa Monica Boulevard. It is 2 conditional use permits. Project numbers are ENT 19-0468 and 19 ENT 0469. The property is located on Santa Monica Boulevard between 16th and 17th Street. It's located in the general commercial zone. It's highlighted there in the yellow and red box. The lot size is 42,500 square feet, and existing on the site is a 1-story building, a strip mall complex built in the 70s. So here you see the site plan. The parking is located primarily in the front off of Santa Monica Boulevard and 16th Street. The existing 7-Eleven is located towards the back, and there is additional parking, a loading zone, and a trash area located off the 16th alley. This is in the existing floor plan for the 7-Eleven. So the request is for an expansion into the adjoining vacant tenant space. The expansion is approximately 1,787 square feet, which would provide a total of 4,180 87 square feet of 7-Eleven store. Existing on the site is also a Type 20 alcohol license, which is beer and wine off-sale consumption. The request for the CUP is to expand the existing convenience market. The code requires a conditional use permit for such types of markets. Typically, they operate extended hours or 24 hours, 7 days a week. Additionally, since this market, convenience market went into this particular site, alcohol requirements did not, the city's alcohol requirements did not provide that they have a CUP. So they're existing legal nonconforming in both aspects of having a CUP for the existing convenience market and having a CUP for the existing alcohol license. This is a plan showing the proposed expansion. I've highlighted in the yellow areas the existing shelf space that's used for the sale of beer and wine. But you will also notice that this expansion will allow for a lot more areas of kitchen, which is part of the new concept for this particular 7-Eleven store, to have more on-site products that would be similar to a market, such as fresh fruits and vegetables, additional kinds of beverages, salads, etc. So what the Commission needs to review is the compatibility with this proposed expansion and the alcohol, granting the alcohol a conditional use permit. So that compatibility is consistent, staff believes, with the process that is outlined in the land use and circulation element to provide markets for local serving and neighborhood access. We have added conditions that are anticipated to minimize any adverse or negative impacts. And the existing legal non-conforming uses would be conforming with the approval of the conditional use permits. Some of the conditions that I'd like to highlight as recommended in our staff report. We are recommending that the convenience mart operate 24/7 as it does today. We are continuing the existing hours of operation for alcohol sales, which is currently 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily. We have added some conditions that deal with the loading areas, specifically in the rear, and limit them to the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily to kind of address potential issues of noise near the residential sites. What I would like to point out is we are actually recommending that the Commission adopt modified conditions number 4 and number 8. Previously, you can see in the red strikeout, there were a reference to a closing, which 7-Elevens in this particular area don't close. And also we took out the word delivery because we felt that it was identified better in condition number 5. And we limited noise generating activities outside the normal hours of being prohibited after 11 p.m. and not allowed again till 7 a.m. Additionally, condition number 8 was changed to better address when the activity for kind of walking the site and making sure that there was trash picked up and disposed of properly. We just added the condition to be once per day. So staff is recommending approval with the findings and the conditions in the report. This was publicly noticed on the website and within a mailing radius of 700 50 feet of the subject site. Staff has received 7 letters of support. You should have all gotten those, and those were posted, I believe, all except for one. And we have not received any opposition or requests for information as of yesterday. So that concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Mike, Chair, your mic.
Thank you. We'll start in alpha order. So if we can just start with Commissioner Fonda Bernardi, any questions for staff?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Fresco.
I have one question. In the staff report, you noted that the police department suggested that there would be a limit on single can purchases of alcohol. And in all of my 5 years as a commissioner here, I've never actually seen the police have anything to say about any of these liquor licenses. So that seemed notable to me, and I was wondering if there was anything about the conditions as they exist that you feel solves the problem they were pointing out.
Yes, Commissioner, we did receive that information from Santa Monica PD. In discussing it with staff, we felt that it was not necessarily appropriate to limit to a certain size or amount a single cell beverage. It had been used in the way back in the early 90s sometimes to prohibit liquor stores from selling small little airplane shot bottles. But we feel that the conditions, as stated in the staff report, dealing with the sale of alcohol, the limitation, and the existing CUP will adequately address, the issues that have been brought up from the PD department, Santa Monica.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll go back to Commissioner Fonda Bernardi.
I think that condition may have been something that got walked over from the 7-Eleven that's across from the proper hotel, which has been a source of a lot of aggravation, particularly in Reed Park. So it may be one of those things where it's being applied because it was applied there. Maybe it's kind of migrated over here. I'm not sure that it's needed here, and it could also certainly be added later if it became a problem. But anyway, that's my thought on it.
Commissioner Lambert?
I have a couple concerns about the police calls to this property, although it's less than those at 7th and Wilshire. Wouldn't be hard. And the one on Lincoln, I think 111 police calls in a 12-month period is pretty concerning. And that's one every 3 days. And I would like to know how many of those police calls, if we have that information, are related to alcohol consumption.
Commissioner Lambert, that is a difficult question to answer of how many are related to alcohol. The police department doesn't categorize their calls for service in quite that way. They'll say disturbance of the peace. They might say there's a call, but no one is there or nothing is there when they arrive. So to say it's specific to alcohol is very difficult unless they would say this person's intoxicated and they pick them up. So the majority of the calls were more or less noise related, disturbance of the peace. We've gotten information from our recycling group that the trash in the back was problematic because people would get into it, go into it. So it is harder to say how many are related specifically to alcohol, but disturbance of the peace was quite a few of those photo calls.
The other question I have is, I did notice a security guard there today. I don't know if that's new or not. But my question to staff is, would it be possible for us to put as a condition that a security guard be on the premises?
I believe operationally they have the security guard, and I believe you can add that as a condition.
I think that would solve a lot of the problems. There should be one at 7th and Wilshire too, by the way. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Vice Chair Pastor.
So I also have this concern about single cans or single. So do they currently sell single cans? Is it, am I to understand that?
Yes, you can go into a store and pick up a single can of beer typically. I think that's the size, single can of beer.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Reese. I'm sorry, Commissioner Raskin. To relearn the alphabet.
Thanks. Just a very minor point. Condition number 6 says the owner shall prohibit loitering in the parking area and shall control noisy patrons leaving the premises. I wonder if it makes more sense to say control noisy patrons on the premises. I mean, I wonder as a practical sense whether that's even really enforceable at all, given the fact that some people might be inherently uncontrollable. But just a very, very minor point.
I believe, we could change the wording on that. It is, as you mentioned, difficult for the establishment to control people, but they do the best they can.
Thanks. So that's
Commissioner Reese. Okay. Commissioner Reese.
Okay, well, following up on, is there a plan?
Hear you.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there a plan to control noisy patrons, or is this something that's going to be created? Has staff heard from that? I mean, I'll ask the applicant the same question.
Could you repeat that? Is there a plan to control noisy patrons?
Well, it says the owner shall prohibit loitering and parking, and so I'm curious, how are they going to do it?
I think by use of the security guard, that would be probably the most appropriate response.
Okay. Then on condition 4, where we talk about the hours, why do we pick 11 p.m.? Seems a little late to me, but so I'm just curious how we got to 11.
We do have some standard language that was transferred from this report. I think we could go, earlier, say 10 o'clock. But I think this was a standard language that we've used. There isn't directly, yes, it is standard language, but I believe we could go to 10, which is in the noise ordinance for a lower level of sound.
Okay. I believe those are my questions for right now, so thank you very much.
Great. I have a couple. I'm just going to follow up on the noisy patrons. It appears that condition 6 and condition 7 are duplicative, particularly the last sentence of condition 7. So perhaps we could find a way to reduce one of those. And I would probably wonder aloud why we're not requiring them to be conditioned. I mean, the noise ordinance applies, so we should not approve of anything that would imply any discontinuity or inconsistency with the generally applicable noise ordinance. So if it's 10, then but I actually think we shouldn't put hours, because if the noise ordinance changes, then they should be remain subject to the noise ordinance. So is there a way to update the language so that it's clear that they're bound by the noise ordinance?
So you said conditions number 6 and 7 were kind of duplicate. I think we try and make sure that it's very clear, so the applicant knows what they're agreeing to. If the noise ordinance changes, that it is more common for us to put in actual hours, but I guess there is the opportunity to use the noise ordinance. It's just we want people to understand what the condition is. We want to make sure it's enforceable. So we have used those hours specifically.
I think we could add something that just says, pursuant to chapter 4.12, because the noise ordinance does have, and it applies to all business support operations across the city. It's prohibited for that. It's the 11 p.m. to 6 a.m., where you can't have the trash disposal, that sort of maintenance operation stuff.
Right.
So the 11 to 7 here is actually more restrictive than the noise ordinance. And this is language that was, we have, I would say, typically put where conditional use permits have been requested for alcohol, the 11 to 7. So we could certainly say, that it's, at all times it would have to be in compliance with the noise ordinance.
That would be great language. Exactly.
The permit can't override it, and there's a standard condition that, it complies with the noise ordinance anyway. So.
Okay. I heard Commissioner Reese asking for a 10 p.m. Quiet hour, so maybe we should note that and come back to it in discussion if we need to make that change. What I was pointing out was that the second sentence of condition 7 actually is the same as the sentence is largely the same as the second half of condition 6. So the same issue that Commissioner Raskin raised about on the premises. And I guess the question that I would ask is, are we requiring, and it goes to his question, are we requiring the business to control the noise or control the or control the causes of noise? Because controlling noise may be easier for them to do than controlling people.
So I will say, this is a performance standard, and I think we've seen different businesses address it in different ways. Like Gina indicated, it could be with the security guard. We do see a lot of businesses put up a sign, that says, hey, please be quiet as you walk to your cars. There are, nearby residents. So it's sometimes a combination of signage and the staff, obviously, informing patrons as they're leaving, or if they observe, behavior that's in violation of this condition, to inform customers to, abide by the noise requirements.
I guess that what I'm getting at is the sort of idea of writing into the STOA that noisy patrons. It's a little bit. I understand that there are noisy patrons, but writing that into the STOA feels a little bit mean. Perhaps there might be a way to sort of suggest that shall control noise by patrons on the premises, or shall control noise by patrons and their associates. I don't know how we want to word it, but some version of that. And maybe we can circle back to that, if there's language that we can come back to when we vote. My other question is, just for my understanding, there was a slide that pointed out that there was 90 linear feet of alcohol sales. Is that the current use, or is that how many linear feet are they dedicating to alcohol right now, and how many linear feet are they proposing to dedicate? Do we know?
Yes. Basically, the area that I highlighted on that screen is the area that they have right now. They're not actually proposing an expansion, and I have a more detailed plan that shows how many shelves are in those areas, so we can calculate the total area. But I just showed the linear area on that screen slide.
So if we approve a CUP for alcohol sales, are we granting them an expansion of the linear feet or not? Would they have the right to get, or would they have to come back to us? No, I'm wondering, when they expand into that second space, are they going to keep their alcohol sales as is? And if they wanted to have more linear feet, they'd have to come back to us, or are we giving them some?
That's correct.
Okay.
They are keeping what they have. Their expansion is really for the new functionality of the 7-Eleven, the kinds of foods and beverages that they want to sell at a little higher end opportunity. So they're comfortable with the amount that they have right now, and that's what they've agreed to as part of this request. And
have you discussed with them where their fresh where their healthy food will be displayed either in the old space or in the new space? I noticed that when they sent us the pictures, the apples were all the way at ground level.
I have not discussed that particular issue with them, but I'm sure the applicant has hopefully some
Great.
information on it.
Okay. Terrific. All right. Any other questions before we hear from the applicant? Nope. All right. Then let us now hear from the applicant. You have 15 minutes, which you can devote as much as you want to if you want to reserve any time for rebuttal after public comment. Is there, or do we have public comment that will be read out pending right now?
Yes, we do have one letter to be read. Do you want to do that now?
Can we hear the letter?
We should do the applicant presentation first and then the letter.
We'll do okay. And so let me ask the applicant, do you want to hold some time back or do you want to use all your time? Do we know?
Any questions?
We can't hear you.
Well, I just was unmuted. Thank you very much.
Oh.
I'd like to hold some time back to answer questions of the commission, should you have any. My presentation is approximately 10 minutes.
You don't get charged for answering our questions.
Okay.
You get talk time. It's only if you want to say something after the public comment.
No, that's not necessary. Okay. I don't choose to hold that back any time then.
Okay, then as they say, your time starts now.
That sounds great. Thank you very, very much under these very, very difficult circumstances. These are not easy, these virtual meetings. Good evening, Chairperson and members of the Santa Monica Planning Commission. My name is Michael Pauls, and I am the applicant's representative. Before beginning my presentation, I wanted to take this time and I wanted to thank and acknowledge your planning staff for their professionalism and their efforts in bringing this matter to you. Truly an outstanding bunch. Again, the location is at the northeast corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and 16th Street. We did have an opportunity to go forward with some community engagement. We met with some of our immediate neighbors at 1412 and 1420 17th Street, which is to the north of the subject site across the alleyway. We also met with some of our neighbors at 1421 16th Street. Everybody we had an opportunity to speak with was in full support of the proposed expansion, and I also like to state for the record that these individuals that I spoke with are also our customers. We're very popular in this community. We represent pedestrian orientation, and we have a long history with this neighborhood. We also, if I may add, we also have the overwhelming support of our customers, the majority of whom live or work within the city of Santa Monica. And as the record shows, there were 8 letters which were provided to the planning department in support of this application from individuals residing within the city of Santa Monica. In terms of the history of this site and existing use, again, as Gina had pointed out, this is a neighborhood shopping center which was originally constructed in 1977. The 24-hour neighborhood market with beer and wine sales was established in the mid-'80s and has been serving this community for over 35 years. It is also currently being considered an essential service by the state of California. The market is surrounded by car dealerships and working class neighborhoods and benefits from a large number of pedestrian-oriented customers. Additionally, we also have a lot of customers that work non-traditional late nights, early morning hours, who have come to depend upon the products and services that this market offers. The business has been cited as an example of inclusiveness in the community in terms of helping the homeless, as well as supporting other businesses in Santa Monica in terms of displaying and selling local products. Additionally, I think it's important to say that this business has always prioritized hiring employees in the local community. There are currently 10 employees which are employed. With the expansion, we're planning on adding an additional 5 employees to operate the market. The business has never been the subject of any code enforcement action by the City of Santa Monica in its 35 years of existence. Nor has the ABC license been the subject of disciplinary action by the State of California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. This is also, I think it's important to note that this is also a site that was subject to the recent looting. The site was completely destroyed. And I think it's important to note that with the encouragement and really help of our neighbors came out the morning after the looting. They helped us clean up the exterior of the building. Very supportive of the owner. The employees chipped in, worked very, very diligently, and they were able to open within just a couple of days, which is truly heroic and greatly appreciated by the neighborhood. So what are we proposing? As Gina had pointed out, we're currently a 2,400 square foot market. We wish to add 1,763 square feet. We're expanding into a corner location inside the shopping center, which has been historically very, very difficult to lease. Actually, the last business that leased the site was an adult lingerie store. The shopping center, the other businesses in the shopping center are very, very supportive of what we're doing. They feel like the shopping center is going to be greatly improved as a result. We are investing over $1.5 million into this upgrade. We're completely renovating the newly expanded, approximately 4,200 square foot market's interior, and we're going to be using high quality, what they refer to as flagship quality materials and finishes. Examples of images of the proposed market interior with examples of typical products that are sold in the market were provided, I believe, in an email to you this morning, which shows the types of products that we're bringing in. The Santa Monica Brew Works, we have a wonderful relationship with them, and the Health Bar Bulletproof, which is also produced in the city of Santa Monica, is increasing its presence in the market and will continue to do so amongst other businesses that will provide us goods. So as Gina had pointed out, really the reason for the expansion is to deliver a greater selection of locally produced goods, healthy organic fare, everyday household goods, specialty coffees and teas, and I'd like to state this for the record, that we are not going to be increasing the shelf area, which is designated for beer and wine sales, which was a comment made by a commissioner. And I'd also like to add that the coffee is great at 7-Eleven, by the way. I'm trying to paraphrase, move this thing through quickly. The only other thing I would like to add in terms of the expansion is that the shopping center owner has agreed to give us a fresh coat of paint for the entire shopping center, to slurry seal the parking lots, restripe the center, and we're also going to be providing a new crash enclosure in back. So the center itself is going to have some significant benefits as a result of this expansion. In terms of security, there are a number of questions. The site will continue to incorporate high-definition security cameras throughout our commercial space and then throughout the entire site. We're maintaining a DVR recording system, which is going to maintain images for 60 days. which we're going to share with law enforcement upon their request. We have currently and will continue to incorporate an age verification system that's going to be administered by the cashier. We have installed over the last couple of years a significant amount of lighting in back along 16th Street in front of the store, which the public has benefited from greatly. The lighting is oriented in such a manner where it's not going to have an impact on any of our neighbors, consistent with the City of Santa Monica requirements. Additionally, the market staff will also be undergoing a significant amount of training. We have agreed to and recommended training for every staff member that they actually participate in and receive a certificate from the State of California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control in regards to their LEAD training program. All the employees will be required to attend a 7-Eleven coming of age training program, which supplements the State of California LEAD training. Our corporate partner, 7-Eleven, also provides significant oversight. There's an operations manager in Long Beach that visits the site almost on a daily basis. 7-Eleven also provides mystery shoppers who grade the site for cleanliness and professionalism of the staff. There is a security guard on site. That security guard is employed by the shopping center and whose salary is in part paid for by the CAM charges provided by the 7-Eleven and the franchisee, who's also the owner of the property. I mean the site. With that, I'd like to just state for the record that we're in agreement with the conditions as stated and amended. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd like to make myself available for any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you very much. Should we go to questions, or shall we hear the one letter of public comment before we ask our questions so we can incorporate if there are questions? Any objection to hearing the public comment before we go to questions? Okay, let's hear the public comment.
Okay, this letter was received this afternoon. It reads, Dear Planning Department, this is the best 7-Eleven around. This place has everything. I stopped by the other day for a keto-friendly snack. Found tuna jerky strips, which is a keto-friendly food. I also came across a dozen delicious healthy snacks that I'm adding to my new list. Never thought I would become a 7-Eleven kind of guy, but I love this place. John, the owner, is great, and all the employees are really courteous and friendly. I also appreciate that the owner supports the Santa Monica Brew Works and other local businesses. I recently heard that the market would be expanding into the vacant space next to it. The expanded store is really going to be nice for the neighborhood. Needless to say, I'm in support of the expanded market and the continued sale of beer and wine. Thank you, Craig Bentz.
Great. Thank you very much. Let us now start with Commissioner questions. Let us start with Commissioner Fondo-Bernardi.
I have no questions and would be prepared to move the project if we can incorporate the various discussion points that we've brought up so far.
Okay. Commissioner Fresco. Let's do questions, and then I'll circle back to you, Commissioner, for the motion.
I just wanted to ask the applicant a question, if he's still available.
Oh, certainly. I'm here.
Oh, hi. We had discussed this idea of moving the trash time a little earlier to keep the neighborhood a little quieter. Is there an operational hardship for you guys if it's 10 o'clock instead of 11?
Yes.
Yes, there is. In what way?
I'm sorry. I may have misunderstood your question. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I said, would there be an operational hardship if you had to throw away your bottles before 10 instead of throwing them away before 11?
Absolutely not. No, but we can accommodate that, and we are in agreement with that condition.
Okay, thank you.
No other. Okay. I don't see Commissioner Lambert, so Commissioner Pastor, Vice Chair Pastor.
Would it be the other thing we talked about was banning the sale of single cans? Is that an operational hardship for you?
It would be viewed as a hardship at this time. What we're trying to do in the store is what we've done is we've eliminated the very low end beers. We don't sell any malt liquors in the site. All our beers are considered to be premium or craft beers, and many of the craft breweries only sell beers in single bottles. And so we would limit the number of craft beers that we could sell on site. Additionally, many of our customers will come in, they will purchase a single craft beer with dinner and then walk home. So it's a very pedestrian-oriented environment, product in terms of our customers. And our customers have become very used to doing this.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of customers are also financially impacted right now as a result of this COVID issue, and they will come in for a single beer.
I got it. Okay. I mean, we haven't heard any complaints, but it was an issue that was brought up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Raskin.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Reese.
I would just ask, what's your vision on controlling noisy patrons leaving the premise? And do you have a definition in your head of what premise means?
Well, the premise legally is inside the commercial space, and we take responsibility for our patients, for our customers. When they come into the business, when they leave the business, we want our customers to be respectful of the surrounding community. In terms of patrons that are loud or boisterous during the daytime hours, many of these individuals are having a crisis moment. What we have trained our employees to do is try to calm situations down, not intervene forcibly, to show individuals the respect and dignity that they deserve. And so we've been very successful in that regard. If, in fact, an individual is recognized as being a danger to themselves and to others, we will not hesitate and contact the Santa Monica Police Department. All our employees and the owner read materials from the Department of Homeless Services in the city of Santa Monica in terms of how to react to individuals that are causing a disturbance. The Santa Monica Police Department is trained to handle these types of individuals, and we simply don't hesitate to do that. With the new store taking up the entire side of the shopping center, and what I'm making reference to is the entire eastern side of the shopping center, it's going to make it much easier for us to control the amount of noise. The door is going to be moved to the north, so the main entry is going to be moved further away from the street. And with this additional training that our employees are undergoing, we're going to be emphasizing working with those types of individuals to try to curtail them. It's not just good for the neighborhood; it's also good for our business.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive response.
Thank you, Commissioner Lambert.
Okay. I'm sorry, I had to go up the hall. Sir, are you willing to accept the changing of the condition so that exterior noise doesn't occur between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m.?
He did say that earlier. Yeah,
He did
you
earlier?
said right.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
did agree to it.
Thank you. And then I have a question about the security guard. Is that person there 24 hours a day?
No, the security guard is employed by the shopping center, as I've mentioned. And the security guard works staggered hours. And so the security guard may come in at 10 o'clock one day and then leave at 6 p.m. The security guard may also come in at 2 p.m. and leave at 10 p.m. So the hours are staggered. The hours are not predictable. Sometimes the security guard, as apparently beneficial as the security guard may seem, sometimes the presence of the security guard could actually cause a situation to evolve. And we have found that we've had a great deal of success with our own employees in causing situations and talking people down, in presenting in presenting ourselves in a manner which we wish to be viewed as a benefit to the situation. The security guard does work 7 days a week. The security guard handles a lot of different activities, including the parking lot, and all our employees actually do walk the site. We get a lot of support from homeless individuals in the area. We have a policy, so if a homeless person actually does come in and appear to be hungry and needs some assistance, we will reach out to those people. We will give them a sandwich, an apple, and some water. And we found that those individuals actually support the business also in terms of other homeless individuals in the area and those individuals who may be boisterous by talking them down and quieting them down. So we've seen a great deal of success, and we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions. One is, can you tell us a little bit more about your plan for healthy food, in terms of the expansion and where you'll be presenting it? You will have heard my question. I did notice that the apples were at ground level, and as I'm sure you are aware, one of the issues with making healthy food accessible to folks is also making sure that it's at eye level.
Absolutely, and we're in complete agreement with you in terms of the placement. Apples, oranges, limes, bananas are placed in different locations throughout the business. Some of them are located closer to eye level, perhaps beneath the shoulders, but above the waist, if I may describe it as such. But it's not indicative of 7-Eleven that apples and fresh fruit are always located at the bottom. The healthy products that we're going to be carrying involve fresh sandwiches, involve fresh salads, fresh fruit, which is very popular. We also have a number of drinks. We have kombucha, we have alkaline water, and these things are very, very popular. We also have vegetable trays for individuals. Healthy bars tend to be very, very popular at this point in time. But healthy snacks in general, that's the way the customer base is going, and that's the direction that 7-Eleven is going at this point in time. And we also want to incorporate as many local products as we possibly can. That's something that is very important to us, and what we're going to be continuing to do. Okay,
thank you. Now, would you say that you're going to be this is where I'm going. Colleagues may be aware that this doesn't apply in Santa Monica, but the County of LA actually did a study that led to an ordinance called the Safe Access to Alcohol in Food Establishments that essentially ensured that convenience groceries serving alcohol for off-site consumption would provide a minimum of 3 varieties of fresh produce and 2 whole grains, among other things, and would sort of limit the amount of shelf space dedicated to alcohol if there was alcohol in the neighborhood within 500 feet. So I guess my question, the idea here is, right, to address food deserts. You will have a variety when you expand. Your plan is, in fact, to provide a wider variety of fresh produce and whole grain and other. We heard a letter about keto, but other healthy items. Is that right?
That's absolutely accurate. Not just plan, but currently what 7-Eleven is doing is implementing in its various stores, and especially in stores such as Santa Monica, is to incorporate more healthy foods, more grain product, more grains, more fresh fruit. In terms of the County of Los Angeles, we would meet and exceed that ordinance.
Great. That's terrific. Thank you. And then my last question is, listening to you, and I appreciate your comment about the role that security guards can play in conflict management, or the lack thereof. And certainly they serve an important role, but we have also heard some concerns about whether security guards are trained in equity issues and trained in de-escalation. But of course, that security guard is not your employee, as I understand you to say. That guard is the employee of the shopping center. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So when we look at the STOA's request, the STOA's requirement that you control noise or control noisy things, you've used some pretty great language about de-escalation. Is there a different language that you'd like us to consider in terms of minimizing disruptions, minimizing noise, de-escalating conflicts, that is more available to you and your employees, as opposed to what we would be requiring of the premises? This is obviously a CUP that runs with the land, but we want to be aware of who's actually going to be doing this work.
Well, our preference, I can say this unequivocally, is to adhere to the goals and ambitions of the city of Santa Monica in treating everyone with respect and dignity, and I think that's half the battle. When you approach somebody respectfully, it's much easier to de-escalate the situation. Sometimes the appearance of the security guard with the badge, with the demeanor of the individual, sometimes can escalate a situation, and we want to avoid that as best we possibly can. We have a good rapport with many of the homeless individuals in the area. We have a good rapport with the Santa Monica Police Department. The Santa Monica Police Department's a frequent customer of ours during late night hours. They stop in, they purchase coffee, and so we believe that many of the potential issues, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, many of the potential issues are actually diffused by not having the appearance of a security guard actually at the site.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to staff at this point. Are there other questions? No. Okay, I'm going to turn to staff at this point and ask staff if there's language that would that might address these issues as we've heard them raised. And I also would point out that Condition 10 submits a security plan to the chief of police, but does not engage any other city staff, including homelessness experts on the city staff in the Human Services Division for the likelihood of success of that plan. So I'd love to sort of hear staff's thoughts about how we might address these issues.
Well, Commissioner, go ahead, Jane.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, regarding condition number 10 in the security plan, the standard language has not incorporated how the operator will deal with potentially issues of noisy patrons or disturbances at the site. The security plan was about control of cash and also alcohol sales.
Thank you. Okay, that's helpful.
Yes. So there is the ability to add some language to work with our other divisions that have more experience in dealing with homeless issues or transient issues to make sure that security plan addresses that particular aspect of the operations. I'm sorry, I forgot what the other question you asked was.
Just this language of control noisy patrons, because I think we were getting at noise. We were trying to simplify it to make it clear that we're asking the applicant to minimize noise consistent with the noise ordinance and to minimize essentially disruptions as addressed by condition 7. So if there was an alternative language to noisy patrons, that would get at.
I think you or one of the other commissioners suggested some wording that we could incorporate.
Yeah, maybe I can. Is it possible? I'm just going to share my screen because I have some red line strikeouts that maybe we can take a look at. So let me do that.
I think Commissioner Fonda Bernardi is ready with a motion that he will incorporate this into.
Can you all see that? So he's just based on what we've heard thus far. So condition number 4, as recommended by staff, Gina had that in her PowerPoint presentation, and instead of 11 p.m., it would be 10 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's the change there. Condition 6, the change here is, as you were talking about the noisy patrons condition, the owner shall prohibit loitering in the parking area and shall control noise by patrons on or leaving the premises. Condition number 7, this is basically, as you indicated, that was a inadvertent typo, so we're just going to strike the second part of that condition so there's no overlap. And then condition 8, as recommended by staff, this is unchanged from what Gina had in her presentation with respect to the changes. So that's a wholesale deletion and replacement of that condition. So those are the ones that we've heard. Yeah.
Jesus.
Could I suggest minimize rather than control?
Sure.
No, Commissioner Fresco doesn't like that. Okay. All right. I would suggest.
I'm using words in a way that's not super productive.
Okay. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi, do you want to make the motion?
Please.
I would like to move that we approve this with those 4 amendments that were listed by Jing Yao. And that's it. Very simple.
Is there a second? Moved by Commissioner Fonda Bernardi, seconded by Commissioner Fresco. And may I ask, Heidi, can we have one vote, or do we need to vote twice because there are 2 different CUPs?
It's cleaner probably to do the 2 votes. You could do the 2 CUPs together and then do the STOA separately. That's probably the cleanest way to do it.
Okay,
so 2 votes, 2 CUPs, and then a separate vote for the STOA.
Okay, so I'm going to take the current motion with the concurrence of the maker and the seconder. And this is the motion on the 2 CUPs. And we'll proceed to a roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert?
Yes.
Commissioner Pastor?
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
And Chair Landris?
Yes. And now let's have a motion on the, there's only one STOA for us to vote on, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's have a motion on the Stowe. Stowe moved by Commissioner Fresco, seconded by Commissioner Fonda Bernardi. Let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Pastor,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Commissioner Reese,
Yes.
and Chair Landris.
Yes. So those pass unanimously, and we will look forward to approving the STOA at our next available opportunity. Thanks to the applicant. Yep.
No, since we have precise language, that STOA will not be coming back to you. So
Okay.
You voted on it already, so that's done.
Then we're good. Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right. Let us now move on to item 10B, 19 ENT 0430 development permit related to 1408 3rd Street Promenade. And let us begin with ex parte.
Hey, Sean, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I am going to recuse myself from this case. The applicant on this project is a client of my office. And while technically I think I'm still impartial and allowed to vote, I believe that it's probably in the best interest that I recuse myself.
So I
Okay.
also have to recuse.
Yes.
So, yeah, I also am going to recuse myself because Gladys and Schnur is a client of my office, and I actually probably technically do need to recuse myself. So I'm glad the rest of you all
Okay.
are
Well, since we
still
have.
there.
Okay, and I will just point out that we have nothing after this, so you both get the advantage of an early evening, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
We're all going to have an early evening.
Commissioner Raskin, if you recuse yourself, we're in real trouble.
I'm first.
Yes, sir. Wait, Commissioner Raskin.
Yeah, I do not need to
Commissioner Raskin,
recuse
go ahead.
myself, but I do want to disclose for the purpose of ex parte that I've walked past the site on numerous occasions.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert,
As have I.
any other? Can we all agree that we have walked on the promenade past this address? Terrific. That's a good thing. Let's hear from staff. Rather, the show is yours. Rather, go on.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Landris and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Radha Duong with the City Planning Division. I will be sharing my screen now, and let me know if you are unable to see it.
Not yet. Here we go. Yep. Great.
So here we are, as you stated, Chair Landris. This project is located at 1404 to 1408 3rd Street Promenade. The proposed project is reviewed as a development review permit, case number 19 ENT-0430. So specifically, the project is a Tier 2 project as it exceeds Tier 1 in terms of the project height as well as floor area ratio. The proposed building is 55 feet high, comprised of 3-story, which is intended to accommodate retail and or commercial uses on all levels. There is a partial basement underground underneath the 3 level that you see here. The proposed FAR is approximately 20,000 square feet, which amounts to about 2.67 floor area ratio. The project also provides 7 long-term and 5 short-term bicycle parking spaces. The site, as you all know, is located in the Bayside Conservation District, which is essentially, for this particular site, is along the promenade, 3rd Street Promenade, and it's surrounded by other properties zoned the same way, Bayside Conservation. The lot is approximately 7,500 square feet, 50 feet wide along the promenade and second court alley at the rear, and it is located within the downtown core. So this site is on the west side of 3rd Street Promenade, just one lot south of Santa Monica Boulevard, and a bit further south is Broadway. Here I am sharing two images, sort of a bird's eye views of the project site and this block, portion of this block anyway. You'll see the subject property on the top image as that is sort of like covered, the facade's covered in red and white, and I'm sure we all have seen that. And it is located in front of Cafe Bella, which is a freestanding kiosk in the middle of the walk street. So the applicant, I'm sure, will discuss further as to the building typologies that are found on the promenade and how the proposed design came to be. And to my understanding, that design was also informed by the location of the specific building, of the subject site and building, as well as the location of Cafe Bella right in front of the storefront. And the bottom photo shows the location of the subject site from a different view, which is on the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side, and a sort of the Apple Store, which I would say sort of the proposed design mimics the store in terms of its modern aesthetic. Here's a view of the existing building. This is a 1918 building that has accommodated numerous tenants throughout the years, and have also, for that reason, have also received, have gone through a number of renovations on its facade as well as interior. And this is a close-up. Right now, there's a Chili Beans as well as a large soap, I believe, soap retailer, and offices and a theater within the building. The new project will be located essentially to the property line, will extend to both the side property line and the front property line along the promenade. There is minimal setback along the rear alley elevation. This is consistent with the development pattern within downtown and specifically along the promenade, in that the front facade is a seamless transitions between the walk street that is the promenade and the storefront. This is an image of the front elevation that is treated with storefront and frameless glass system. As you can see here, it is very transparent. Again, that is to make a seamless transition between the interior of the space to the promenade on the exterior. As I stated earlier, this design is informed by the fact that Cafe Bella is right in front of it, and this is one way the applicant has indicated that it would provide the tenants within the store, within the space, some added visibility that is comparable to other stores up and down the promenade. Okay, I can't seem to move to the next screen. Here is the rear elevation along Second Court Alley. This elevation is different from the front elevation in that it's composed differently using a variety of materials and finishes, and as well as its placement. The project was reviewed by, in terms of its design, was preliminary reviewed by the Architecture Review Board on May 4th. And the board offered the applicant some useful feedback in terms of finessing the project further. Also, the board expressed that in comparison to the front elevation, the back elevation appears more successful, again, because it's because of its composition and its placement of materials and finishes, so the appearance overall seems more balanced. While we're looking at the rear elevation, the board also commented that the alley should be activated further, as alleys through the city are becoming more accessible and used by everyone throughout the city. So it should not be simply a rear elevation, but also addressed so that it's more welcoming to travelers up and down the alley. So the top image is the basement, which will contain a changing room, a shower, as well as long-term bicycle storage, as well as some back-of-house rooms such as electric room and the transformer room. The first floor area, because this is a speculative building, the applicant or owner has not identified tenants for this building yet, so it's simply an open floor plan, but the way it is designed, it will be able to be configured to accommodate various tenants based on their needs. Again, the second and third floors are similar, with the exception that the third floor has or incorporates a 580 square foot balcony, which fronts directly onto the promenade. So there is a visual connection of the open space as well as connections in terms of the vibrancy adding to the streetscape. One notable feature of the design is a 2,935 square foot roof terrace. Open space is not required for this project based on its lot size and lot width, but a nice open space on the roof is nonetheless incorporated to really activate the roofscape and also mimic the landscape and outdoor space that exists on the promenade itself. I also wanted to note that the ARB was interested in seeing how the applicant would connect the open space on the promenade to the open space on the rooftop. So it's simply so that it won't become an attractive space that no one knows. So as I stated earlier, the Architectural Review Board reviewed this project preliminarily on May 4th and offered some meaningful feedback in terms of the project compatibility to other buildings on the promenades, including its scale and architectural gesture, and that the project feels ungrounded presently, and look for, again, as I stated earlier, look for ways to connect landscape at the rooftop to the ground floor, and look for ways to have a more composed elevation along the promenade that is similar to the rear elevation, as well as looking at sensitive lighting design, given that the promenade is overlit in some section of the shopping district. So for development review, there are a number of findings that need to be made in terms of the physical location, size, massing, and placing of the structure, and that there are facilities and right-of-ways that can accommodate pedestrians and autos, and that there are fire and health police protection services. All of those findings can be made for this project, being that the subject site is located within an urban environment, and it's currently developed, and this is simply a infill project and redevelopment of an existing site. So as far as CEQA review is concerned, the project is exempt from CEQA and for its consistency with the specific plan, specifically the downtown community plan, as well as a number of criteria such as the FAR ratio being at least 0.75, and also in a transit priority area. Public notices were sent out to property owners within the 750-foot radius of the subject site, and the site was also posted with a public hearing sign. We received one letter of support from downtown Santa Monica, and staff did not receive any opposition. And staff recommends approval of ENT 0430 with the findings and conditions in the STOA. And with that, I will conclude my presentation, but will be available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to, do we have questions for staff? We'll start in reverse order this time, this item. So we'll start with Commissioner Raskin. Work our way back.
So if I understand correctly, the rooftop deck is intended to be a publicly accessible open space. Is that correct?
Right now, as we know so far, and that has not been determined. I assume it all would depend on the tenant, the future tenants, whether it'll be because the space could be easily a restaurant space or dining space. So it all depends on the type of tenants that will move out there, or at the very least, it'll be outdoor space for the building occupants or office occupants. But the applicant may have a better idea of the true intention of the space, whether it be public or private use.
Okay. And then for the bicycle parking, is the intention, and the applicant may be able to answer this better, but is it your understanding that bicyclists would walk the bicycles down the stairs from the back alley to the bicycle parking? Or
yeah,
would they? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, the long-term bicycle parking requirement is meant to satisfy bicycle parking or an alternative mode of transportation for employees within the buildings, not for members of the public. So this is not atypical in that case because this is for employees, so they would have access to the basement.
But is the goal that people would walk the bicycles down the stairs?
Yes, we've seen projects that incorporate bicycle parking in a basement or subterranean parking in the past. So this is not atypical.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for now.
Commissioner Lambert.
I do, thank you. I thought in your staff report you said that the roof deck would be available to employees and customers, which would.
Well, maybe I should have clarified that it could be made available to employees and or customer depending on the function or the tenant within the buildings.
Okay, but no fast food.
No fast food. Not that we know of.
I have a question, and actually Commissioner Fespa can probably go into this after you respond to the one's return. I remember when we were doing the DCP that there was discussion of doing a neighborhood conservation overlay district on the promenade and 2nd and 4th Street, and somehow that got dropped because of the bandwidth of your staff and everybody's time and effort and what have you. And in its place, there were going to be development standards approved as part of the DCP that my understanding was did something to protect the historic fabric of the promenade. I may be wrong, but that's what I remember. And I just wonder how, in your mind, you think the design of this building comports with the historic fabric of the promenade. And I'm not talking about the Apple Store. By the way, I wouldn't bring that up again. The Apple Store was very controversial. What happened to the building that was there? Anyway, can you respond to that? Maybe Nina, when it's her turn, can you talk about it? But I remember an NCOD was discussed, and the purpose of that would have been to have some protection for the fabric of buildings on promenade.
Right. So, Commissioner Lambert, so it was an action in the DCP to establish a neighborhood conservation overlay district over the Bayside Conservation District. That's including actually 2nd and 4th Street, so all of it. If you'll recall, I guess during the DCP, we did identify a number of potential historic resources as part of the downtown HRI survey that was submitted to the state. In terms of the promenade specifically, obviously the promenade is undergoing the Promenade 3.0 project, and the preservation of historic resources in the downtown is a priority within the DCP. In terms of this particular project, what we look for within NCOD isn't exactly like replicating what was there, but it's in terms of scale and massing and materials. And I think you can probably see that in the ARB's review of it and the staff's review of it as well. And certainly within the purview of the development review permit, the commission could certainly provide direction or comment on how this project fits in with the context in terms of its scale and massing as well. But at this point in time, given resources, and NCOD is not something that is been initiated or actively pursued at this time.
Well, I wasn't talking about replication of a historic building, but compatibility with what is there historically. I seem to recall
right.
There's a point of discussion. I had another question, but I can't remember what it was.
Shall we go on to Commissioner Fresco and come back?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to pick up on what Commissioner Raskin was discussing. Rather, do people actually have to carry their bikes down the stairs? That part is just very unclear and sounds pretty prohibitive for a lot of people to ride a bike to work. What's the deal with that? Or is the elevator going to somehow be bicycle friendly? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Fresco. The bicycle parking aspect of the project is reviewed by the mobility staff, and according to staff in that division, carrying your bike is an acceptable method, and it meets the requirement of providing long-term bicycle parking on site. And that is the important aspect of that, is providing long-term bicycle parking on the project site as opposed to elsewhere.
Okay. In my walk-up days in New York, I carried my bike up the stairs from about when I was 22 until I was about 28, and that was the end of my bike riding while I lived there. So, thanks.
Well, just to clarify also, I am reviewing, my memory serves me well. There is an elevator in the basement. Yes, I stand corrected.
Okay, that's
yes.
a relief.
Mm-hmm, yes.
But we could maybe put a condition that there would be a little ramp adjacent, just a little thin ramp for the bikes adjacent to the stairs, so the person could walk down the stairs and roll their bike next to them down a little. We could put that in there, right?
Yeah, that is certainly a viable option.
Okay, and I had another bike parking question of my very own. It says 5 short-term bicycle parking will be provided within the public right-of-way along Santa Monica Boulevard through a separate administrative review and approval process. In the past, when people wanted to put bikes out in front of their places, it was a horrible, foreboding thing that could never be. And what's going on here about the public? How does this work? Explain this to us better, please.
Yes, you are correct in that generally we would prefer to have projects provide short-term bicycle parking on site, specifically in front of the building. But our zoning ordinance also at this time allow parking off-site. but more importantly for this site, this is a unique site. Currently, we don't allow bicycle riding the bicycle on the promenade. So that is one unique factor that this site experienced compared to other sites throughout the city. And the reason why Santa Monica Boulevard seems to be an appropriate location is because of its close proximity to the building itself. It's only one storefront away, and because the promenade is a unique site, the entire promenade is, and that you cannot ride on the promenade, this would be the most appropriate and suitable location.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Fresco, if I can also just augment what Rather was saying. In terms of the process, it's not just sort of like an outright, you can just put, well, you can satisfy your short-term parking in the public right-of-way per the code. It is reviewed by the mobility staff, and as Rather mentioned, it's not the first preference, particularly with new construction. And you're absolutely right that, in the past we haven't entertained this option before. The process actually does involve that the applicant has to agree to enter into a license agreement with the city, because they're basically, installing this bike rack on public right-of-way to satisfy their short-term parking. They also charged fees for the administrative cost to review that agreement, and also they have to pay a lease rate for the bike rack. So it's about approximately $12,000 per bike rack to be able to do that. They also have to pay for the one-time replacement cost. If the city has to replace it in the future, for that bike rack. They're pretty durable. They last a very long time, so they are also charged that replacement cost. And then the restoration of the right-of-way of the city were to remove that bike rack in the future. So that's it. It's a lot involved in terms of someone agreeing to want to do that.
Okay, that's very interesting. I have one more question for Rather, which has to do with the ARB conditions. There were a ton of notes that the ARB gave, and you noted in your staff report that you didn't notice that or find that the applicant responded to them much between that application and this one. And I mean, as far as I could tell, it looks like they changed some of the window geometries on the third floor. Is that your understanding also, that it was a pretty minor change to the third floor from the last version?
Yes, as I stated in the staff report, we met with the applicant in June after the revision to the design post ARB was presented to us, and we provided additional comments and how the project is consistent with those comments. And in general, staff felt that it did not, the project was not revised to a point where it was consistent to those issues that were raised by the ARB, in particular to the mass and scale and the level of transparency on the facade facing the promenade.
So the comments that ended up in the project-specific conditions are ones that came directly from the ARB and not additional comments from staff after that second meeting.
No, yes, all of the comments that are contained in the staff report came directly from the ARB.
Okay.
Staff simply provided comments in terms of the direction the changes were heading and consistency with the board's feedback.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Mr. Fonda Bernardi.
Yeah, those were the same questions I had. I wanted to understand the process for the ARB review. If I understand it, is this review obligatory before going to the CUP, or is it a convenience for the developer to get a heads up on things before they come to us? And maybe Rather you can speak to that.
The preliminary ARB review is required for being that the project is located in the DCP.
Got it. Okay, that's just what I wanted to know. That was it. That was my question.
And Commissioner Lambert, do you want to finish your question? You're muted.
Sorry. It's a process question, and I should know this, and I can't remember. If they don't comply with the ARB requests, requirements, what have you, they do not get ARB approval, what happens?
Well, the applicant may return to ARB despite the fact that perhaps the design hasn't changed to the degree that the board requested. The board has the option of approving with conditions or denying the project, and at which point the applicant could appeal the decision of the ARB.
To us, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought. Thanks so much.
I just have one question, actually, about the. I do want to kind of echo Commissioner Raskin and Commissioner Fresco's questions, particularly Commissioner Raskin's concerns about the roof. But rather, could you tell me, when you were working with the applicant on this, to what extent were they aware, or were you sharing with them the Promenade 3.0 goals?
That was shared with the applicant as we were meeting with them, when we met with them as a preliminarily before the project was even submitted, so that the applicant team of the expectation from the board and the site context, as well as the work that is ongoing with Promenade 3.0, that was made aware to the applicant.
Okay, so when we'll hear from the applicant, but I just want to hear your thinking on this. If you can bring up the rear elevation, or I'm actually interested in the alleyway, to the extent that there is a longer-term vision that the alley could become a site for smaller storefronts, local serving storefronts. And I'm asking you this because I recognize that the code is not what it will eventually be. What do you feel that this alley is consistent with potential adaptation to a more pedestrian friendly, or at least a more active retail friendly alley?
Commissioner Landris, I think that to answer your question, the challenge with this site particularly is that it's a small site, and the frontage along the alley and the promenade is only 50 feet wide. And when a project tries to comply with various requirements from different divisions, what you generally will end up with for a site of this width is what you see here, where you will have requirements for loading, secondary access, transformer and electrical room, and that's precisely what we're looking at here. This simply isn't enough room to accommodate anything else that would support a desirable design in terms of pedestrian orientation or pedestrian friendliness. And that's part of the reason why the ARB provided a comment to activate this facade further, knowing that there are challenges with SCE requirements, with the trash room, with the transformer, with the loading and secondary access. This is simply enough to provide. Okay. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Okay. And what about, because you made a comment that, you're not allowed to bike on the promenade, which is of course true, but I think people who would be biking to this workplace very likely might be biking into the back alley. would they get access to the elevator from the back alley?
Let me go back to the
very, I mean, it's sort of at the very least, is there that level of?
From the alley, the only way to get to the elevator, there is an access to the elevator, but you would have to use the stairs.
Okay, I guess we'll bring that up with the applicant. All right, terrific, thank you. Are there other questions before we go to the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Raskin.
Yeah, just a very minor point. I noticed in the project plans there weren't any restrooms on site, and I'm sure that that's just a quirk of the plans, but I hope it doesn't get overlooked in the planning process.
No, yes, that won't be overlooked. That's required items in the building plan check process. This is again simply a spec building, just showing the basic layout of the different floors.
No, it's part of the extreme water saving plan. All right, let's hear from the applicant. And again, do we have public comment for this that needs to be read out?
There is no written public comment.
Okay, so let us, I will just tell the applicant you have 15 minutes. There is no public comment for you to save time for rebuttal for, so we'll hear from you, and then we'll go to our questions, and then we'll go into discussion.
Hi, it's John Reed. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, but let me suggest that you minimize your browser screen, because there we go.
You can see my screen.
Now we're talking.
Thank you very, very much, commissioners. So I don't know where to start. Should I start with bicycles or just start with my presentation and work towards the
No, start with your presentation, and then we'll circle if you want to cover these issues, but we'll circle back on the questions we have after your presentation. But take your 15 minutes. Okay. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
So the proposed design presented tonight is based on solid design principles and a detailed contextual analysis of existing 3rd Street Promenade buildings, which have influenced the scale, massing, character of the proposed design. So what we ended up doing was we ended up going through cataloging every single building on the 3rd Street Promenade, and we identified them as historic, your typical shopping mall design that you would see in Anywhere USA, steel and glass designs, unique designs, landscape features, pavilions. So every single building was cataloged from Santa Monica Boulevard, Arizona, Broadway, and Wilshire. And the challenge of this site really speaks to the fact that we've got a building that's 27 feet away from us, which is the Bella Building. So when you take a look at the rendering, what we have is we have a building that is blocking our entire frontage. There have been very, very few buildings built over the last 20-some years. The anthropology building next door was built approximately 25 years ago, 1994, 95. So what we're looking at is a series of older buildings, and we're looking into how to bring more life into this particular area of the site. So a driving aspect of this had to do with the location of the Bella Building in relationship to our building. So if you take a look, when you walk down the promenade in front of the site, we have a 15-foot sidewalk. Buildings are built to the property line, and then we have approximately 12 feet to the Bella Building. So the design challenge is how do we go ahead and have people sort of be attracted to this site looking north and south from the promenade. So our view of the building, which really is a front and rear, this you'll never perceive the building as head on. designing a retail building that is blocked from view requires simple forms and transparency, which makes a statement to attract pedestrians into the space. So what we've done is, and we've made numerous changes since that ARB hearing. One of the changes is we've actually lowered let's just say the third floor, which is the steel frame, several feet. So the Santa Monica Code permits us to go to 39 feet, and we're at approximately 33 feet. There was a reference made to 1.5 stories, and if you take a look at the T-Mobile building, we're actually pretty much in line with the T-Mobile building. The second floor of the Anthropologie building is actually down here. So the Anthropologie is a 3-story building, but the facade was created to give the illusion it was 1 story, two very large ceilings, which it isn't, and then a 3rd story. So what we tried to do was create a building that creates transparency and allows the pedestrian, whether you're at, let's just say this view, or you're at this view, to basically get a very, very, very clear picture of it. I would like to sort of outline the conditions that are number 1 on page 28 of the staff report, which really show that we have addressed a number of conditions, but a couple of the ARB members did not like the direction of the project. And we discussed with them the reasons why we wanted to proceed this way. And I'm hoping that as I go through the conditions, I'll sort of explain why we believe we've addressed them. The first one had to do with the project's compatibility with other buildings. And as I said, we went through, and there are numerous buildings that are 2 stories fronting the promenade. The Santa Monica Downtown Specific Plan requires our 3rd floor to be set back. We've set the 3rd floor back 3 times the requirement, so that you would perceive this mass along the promenade as being, in context with other facades, whether it's the Anthropologie building, the Mobile building, or other buildings going down the street. We want to be taller than the Bella building, obviously, because we want pedestrians to see over this building and sort of around the building to recognize that this project, does exist. The variety of typologies is a strong characteristic of the promenade. And there's historic monolithic buildings which anchor the site. There are other kinds of buildings on the promenade that are infill. Our building will provide a contemporaneous to the promenade and a new paradigm of work and recreation lifestyle. Given the dramatic decrease in retail and restaurant and tourism economic vitality in the Santa Monica, we feel that this project will be a step forward to the future of Santa Monica's goals, and the project is compatible in both scale, character, and mass, and does not maximize the allowable envelope. So we feel that the scale and mass of the building is compatible. When we talk about the overall scale of the building, the original design basically was asymmetrical. We had an entrance on one side, and then we had a steel column that wrapped around the 3rd floor, and then this vertical column. We added another column, and then we actually took a look at breaking up the facade into more columns, similar to what other projects did in the promenade. And what it basically did was it created, small, type retail spaces. It really didn't lend itself to a much sort of larger space. So the ARB asked us to say if we did split the ground floor space into 2 spaces, what would happen? And we came up with a scheme where we ended up, designing a glass sort of partition that would separate a demising wall. So in this scheme, we're showing that we would have 2 entrances with a glass panel that would go back 5 feet. So you would still keep, an overall mass and transparency versus a 1. So we feel that we could accommodate a ground floor tent for the whole ground floor with an entrance on the side, which would service other uses on the 2nd and 3rd floor, or we could accommodate 2 ground floor tenants. The next thing I sort of wanted to address was the appearance of the ground floor doesn't feel grounded. And what we're trying to sort of explain is that we want the building to feel as if it's flowing into the promenade, so that there's a transparency and that there's an entrance where you actually walk in, an indoor-outdoor sort of transparency. Unlike other areas like T-Mobile, where you don't really know where the building plane begins and ends. So when you're dealing with a situation like this, we want pedestrians to feel that they could flow into the space and be drawn into the space, rather than create a number or series of walls or columns, which basically create a colonnade and not necessarily invite people in. It would be more like let's just call it the Anthropology building, where it's a series of columns and there's merchandise in the columns, but there really is only one entrance on the Anthropology building, which is at one side. And that's not the design we really wanted to sort of portray. The next issue is we wanted to talk about the connection between the ground floor and the roof deck. And one thing that we have sort of examined is adding a roof trellis detail. So when you're walking down the promenade, you'd actually see, a structure on the roof rather than just landscaping. And the roof deck is going to be designed to be used by the occupants of the building. So if it's an office space or other types of uses, the occupants of this building would use and have access to the roof deck. We think that's very, 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 very important. The next comment had to do with introducing more solid surfaces. A lot of these comments from the ARB were repetitive, and I think that would defeat the purpose of having a facade that's approximately 42 feet wide, and the idea of breaking it up into a series of smaller spaces we didn't feel was appropriate given the fact that we're blocked by the Bella building. The ARB board did like the real elevation, and they were completely aware of why it was designed on the ground floor. The space to the right is a roll-up door that houses 200 plus square feet of 6 trash bins. We worked with the R&R department, and they would not allow us to decrease this width. In fact, they wanted it larger. This was a compromise. They allowed us to reduce the width from 10 feet to 12 feet. Southern California Edison will not allow us to put the transformer in the alley. They require a roll-up door with an access and a hole in the floor to provide access. We worked with the transportation department for months, asking them if we could eliminate the loading space, given the fact that no loading was done inside of the building on the promenade alleys. They're done in the alley. After months of review, they basically said, no, the only thing we will approve is a perpendicular 12-foot wide plus load with a 30-foot deep loading zone with 5-foot visual triangles on either side. We have a rear exit requirement and a stair requirement. So if you take a look at this facade, we asked both the planning department and the other agencies if they were willing to allow us to make changes, and they said, this is the current code, maybe in the future. So what we're planning on doing is creating all non-structural walls in the back. So we'll have some structural columns, but if this can become a glass facade in the future, that would be great. If this trash becomes eliminated and we can minimize it and do something else with it, then this could become a glass facade. This facade, where this roll-up door is Southern California Edison, and we really have no choice. So we do have the possibility of opening up, let's just say 40% of the facade on the northern portion of the site in the future, if in fact the loading space can be eliminated and we can create more glass transparency. The rear elevation has no step back. So what we've done is we've created the second and third floor, created an element, created windows for either offices or retails, and identified the vertical circulation. We can't do that all on the front facade because we have a modulation requirement. So to compare the front facade and the rear facade, it really isn't quite fair. The proportions of doing something similar on the front facade, I don't think would work, because what would you do? You would frame the second floor and then create a horizontal band and then create a one-story element here and a second story that floats. We really didn't think that was a a design direction that really would make sense given the fact that we're trying to create this two-story facade that's so typical throughout the 3rd Street Promenade. So we believe that the rear facade is successful. Activating it more would be great. If we could remove the loading space, we could certainly do that, and I think it would improve the facade, tremendously. Lighting control. One of the comments had to do with lighting. And if you were to take a look at the rendering we have here, which is sort of a night shot, you'll see that the T-Mobile building is lit up like a Christmas tree. And the board was saying, well, we don't want to have any lighting like this happening. And we said that was not our intent. We were going to create, recessed channels and conceal the lighting as much as possible rather than have, let's just call them, circular or recessed lighting. Although there is an opportunity because, this steel beam will be dropped quite low and we'll be concealing quite a bit of, direct lighting. But the intent is not to have lighting like sort of the T-Mobile building or other types of building on the promenade where it becomes more of a light show. The next question had to deal with second floor retail representation. So the code...
We have a minute left in your presentation, and we can cover a lot with questions, but if there's anything you'd like us to hear during your presentation, now's the time to say it.
Okay. So access to the building from the rear, there is a ramp. You have a access, bikes can walk down the ramp, get into the building, and so there's a ramp located here. You'll open the ramp, you'll come in the rear, there'll be a ramp. We're going to add a rear door to the elevator, so you'll go the ramp, take the bikes in, and access the elevator. You don't have to go down the stairs to get to the elevator. Rather than having short-term bicycles create a niche in front of the building, there is already a recess where the entrance will be to the second and third floors if there's a different use. We felt by creating a separate niche only to house short-term bicycles really didn't make sense. No other building on the 3rd Street Promenade has an alcove for short-term bicycles.
That's the 15 minutes.
Thank you. I'll be more than happy to address any of your questions.
Okay, let's go to questions, and we'll start with Commissioner Raskin again.
Thank you. So I understand also that there might be some flexibility with respect to where the elevator might be placed relative to the design of the building. Yeah, I'm curious if the building is split between two different tenancies on the front side, whether that would necessitate the installation of a second or even third elevator to make the building accessible to people with disabilities.
No, so basically the way it's designed is if it's going to be multiple uses, then this would be the entrance to the second and third floor. There'll be a hallway created, and this elevator will provide access. By creating an elevator door on the rear and the front, we can control it. So we could have people come in for the back, have access to the rear elevator to get down to the bike area. We can have people come in through this sort of corridor and then have access to the second and third floor. So there'll be no ADA issues at all.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't have any other questions at this point. We can move on.
Sure, Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. In terms of the roof garden or whatever you call it, the question was raised of whether or not it would be open to the public. My understanding from the staff's report, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it would be available to employees and customers in the retail. Is that true?
That is correct. I don't believe the intent is to create a public space up there where we couldn't control it. So the idea is, without being able to control access, that wouldn't make sense. It would be more like the roof access on the Restoration Hardware building in in West Hollywood, where if you're a customer of Restoration Hardware, you go up to the roof, but not anyone can go up there and, let's just say, have lunch or something like that. That is not the intent.
Well, how would you? It seems like it would be kind of hard to control. I mean, someone could walk into the store, wander around, and then go up to the roof, but not really be a customer.
Well, it would depend. It would depend on what the use of the second and third floor is. So if it's a 3-story retail tenant and they take the entire building, then the roof deck would become part of the retail component. If it's a multi-tenant building, then the second and third floor, if that becomes, let's just say, an office use, then the third floor would be primarily used for the office use, and the ground floor retail would relate specifically to the 3rd Street Promenade, because it would only represent approximately 35% of the area, of the floor area.
Are you anticipating an office use in part of the building?
At this point in time, pre-COVID, I think there was a high probability a retailer would take the entire building. Yeah. Post-COVID, and given what's happening with the 3rd Street Promenade, with prices dropping and tenants going out of business, I think that there is a possibility that this will be a multi-tenant building, and the second and third floor quite possibly could be other types of uses besides retail.
When do you see this coming online?
If we get planning approval tonight and then go through the ARB and then go through Coastal Commission and then go through the building department and then commence construction, it could be 2 years from now, 2.5 years from now.
And I assume you anticipate the market will be better in 2 years.
We really don't know when we'll have a vaccine. We really don't know when people will start. We don't know if the government will be closed up again. We don't know what will happen with COVID. It's really hard to say.
And then, but back to the roof. If you made that available to the general public, which I'm not altogether in favor of, but would that create liability issues for you that may be insurmountable?
I believe there would be a lot of liability issues. Number one, who would control it? You're not going to put a security guard up there. The other thing really would be is how would you limit the types of uses up there? If you could, what if 50 people went up there and started conducting, other types of parties or something? I think it'd be very, very difficult. We need to be able to control who is up there, when they're up there, the time they're up there, what types of uses are up there.
So I'm assuming you're not renting this out for parties.
No, I do not believe. I believe that if the tenant wants to hold an event up there, I don't believe there's anything wrong with the tenant holding an event, but I don't believe this would be a use that we could rent to some non-ownership or tenant party.
As long as the noise ordinance is abided to.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the only questions I have.
Okay, Commissioner Fresco. No questions?
No,
okay.
It took me a long time I have a new mouse. It takes me a long time to get it there. My question, I'm sorry to harp on these bicycles, but if we're going to really have use for bicycles, never mind, you answered that question. I think I have no more questions for the applicant at this time.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi.
Yeah, first of all, let me say I sympathize with your problems in the alley. I think they're not your problems. I really think they are a code problem, because when you lay out all the little pieces in the alley that you're required to have, you have nothing left. Your alley is completely maxed out. I think that's a problem, because that keeps it from ever being an activatable alley is the problem. So I think we need to solve that in the next iteration. I think you did the best you could, but it's really an unsolvable problem if you stick to the codes. And then every department from SCE to recycling, et cetera, they just hold their line, and then you end up with nothing when you're done. So I appreciate that. The other thing is that, what we're seeing here is we're tearing down a 3-story building. It's a rather old building. It's been historically butchered. I believe it has offices upstairs. Can you tell me what's there now in that 3-story existing building?
Yes, there are offices on the upper levels. There's a theater company on the upper levels, and they have acting classes there. So the second and third floor are primarily offices and the theater for the acting school. And then their ground floor is retail.
Yeah. So what's happening is we're taking 3-story building with a mix of uses. We're tearing it down. We're putting up a new building. And this is going to be for those tenants can never come back. We've eliminated some local businesses and they can't afford a building like this. So this is going to be a high end. So this is really part of a relentless gentrification of our city. And, I think over time, I'm not sure that's a good idea, but we are where we are and we have to evaluate this project as it is. But one of the questions is, could it be brought back into some form that would be more useful to us, particularly in dealing with our housing job imbalance? So the question for you, John, is, could the third floor, for instance, be housing? Is there anything in this design would prevent it from becoming housing?
Yeah, the building is a type 3 non-rated building, and the requirements of housing with separate elevators, access, ADA issues, plumbing coming down, all those types of, let's just say, use issues related with housing, because I do an extensive amount of housing, would be very, very, very challenging to do. So, and I really don't see that as a viable option. One of the ground floor tenants has actually left the building already. So Lush has already moved out. And a good number of the tenants don't look like they're going to be re-signing leases. So I don't see this as a change of uses in terms of who's leaving and who's not staying. I look at this as an opportunity to sort of revitalize, a building that, unfortunately, given its age and given the configuration of it, is outlived its useful life.
Well, we could have a long talk about that. We don't have to go there tonight. Why do you say you couldn't put a third floor residential use up there? You would have a card key to control the elevator. You would be good. You would have you're not relying on a single tenant for the whole building. You're going to have a mix of tenants there. So why couldn't one of those tenants or more be housing on the third floor?
So if you take a look at the third floor, and let me bring it up, the third floor is designed property line to property line. So what that basically tells you is that we have no light along 150 feet on the sides of the building. So the only light we have would be in the front of the building and the back of the building. So imagine if you're actually trying to create this as housing, you'd end up with maybe 2 gigantic penthouses. And I don't think that's the kind of housing that makes sense for this particular site or for the 3rd Street Promenade. I don't know if we want to do 2 3,000 square foot penthouses.
Okay. Well, you could also carve out of the middle a certain amount of space that would be open space for one or the other of the units, and then use that to relieve this long shoebox problem. But anyway, again, I feel there's a lot of resistance there, and I think it's misplaced resistance, because I think we're going in the wrong way with loading up on more commercial space. Commercial space is going to be basically wasted in our city. We are got to start thinking a little more toward the housing end of things. My last question has to do with the solar collectors. You could go to the roof plan for a second.
Sure.
And what are those rectangles that are just to the west of the solar collectors?
These?
Yeah.
This would be mechanical equipment.
Okay. And it seems that in a 3-story building, you can get that building to net zero, but it would take a lot of work. And let's say you were wanting to try to get there much closer than you are, maybe 100% better than you are doing now. You could end up with a situation where you would essentially double your solar collectors and give up some of your roof deck space. Would you be willing to do that?
I think we could certainly look at that as a possibility. retail does take lighting and air conditioning does require a lot of energy. So, but we would definitely take a look at it.
Would you make a commitment to that?
What if it's not? I'm just saying. What if it's not feasible? What if to get to that point you'd have no roof deck? You'd have to have the entire roof.
Wait. I can just look at by the geometry there. If I actually just double the existing roof solar collectors that you have, you could easily do that. You're not losing your whole roof deck. You wouldn't even lose a third of your roof deck by doubling.
Yeah, I don't think. I think doubling the solar panels, if that's what it's going to take to get approval, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you. And I would just like to clarify, see if you have any additional comments about that back alley. I agree with Commissioner Fonda Bernardi that the code is basically dictating what you can do, but I'm wondering where you see even some possible participation in a Promenade 3.0 vision, because I'm not seeing it here, and I would love to, even at some symbolic level. Being able to bike down a ramp is great, but how is this going to be a welcoming, like at least a welcoming space on the alley?
The stair is an exit requirement. It has to be there. The ramp is because we have a grade change, and it also provides easy access to the rear elevator door. And let's just say disabled people coming in from the alley. We really pressed the transportation department to allow us to not provide a loading space, or provide a loading space that had a glass transparency here, a glass roll-up door, and in the future, if the code changed, allow us to create some, where there was a possibility of a rear storefront. But yeah. We were told no. We were told you can't do anything. So if you look at my dimensions here, I have a small gas meter here. I maybe have a foot here. We were thinking about removing this one wall and having maybe a door and a glass panel next to it in this location. But but from this point to the property line, literally 42 feet or 41 feet, we weren't given any flexibility, and none of the other agencies were willing to work with us at all.
That's disappointing. Okay, well, maybe there's an opportunity at least for some wall art or a mural or something. But that's about it, I guess. All right. Any other questions before we move to discussion? Nope. Okay. Let's. Well, thank you, and we'll open it up for discussion.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Fresco.
Hi, everybody. In terms of this ARB situation, I have to say that I think these ARB conditions are really, really prescriptive. And if...
Sorry, Commissioner Fresco, can I just pause? Can I ask the applicant to please stop sharing the screen?
Oh.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Thank you.
I think they're really prescriptive, and in my opinion, if the front of the building ends up looking like the back of the building, I'll be really disappointed. And I think that they should be encouraged to do something different and new. And I think that there are some issues, and I think that there's too many materials, and it makes it kind of weirdly busy for such a simple structure, and that the inside is so visible, and yet it doesn't seem to relate to the outside. And I would like to see the design make the inside and the outside more compatible and streamline things a little better. I think the reason the Apple building is successful on the promenade is it's like totally modern and doesn't waste any time discussing things with the other buildings, but it's really simple. And that's kind of why it works and why it doesn't take away. And so I think simplifying and making its own statement, I mean, it can't be simple like the Apple building because it's 2 stories and it needs to not fall down. But so, you know, I think maybe after the discussion, when I hear from the other commissioners, I will be able to formulate some more specific suggestions for moving forward that might help them improve the design in a way that hopefully, I mean, I'm not an architect. I'm just looking at what they're saying and I'm hearing what the architect is trying to do, and I want to try to make everyone get along. In terms of what Leslie said about the compatibility with the historic fabric of the promenade, in that area, I do have things to say, probably not what you expected. This building I know was reviewed by the Landmarks Commission a year ago, and they passed on it because it's a building that was built in 1905, not 1918. I know that's what the tax assessor says, and so that's where that year came from. But so many terrible things have been done to it so extremely that the assessor changed the date. They sometimes do that when it's been updated a lot, as it has been a number of times. But this building is the Bundy Block, which is an important historical site in our city. It doesn't have enough integrity to be a landmark, not even close, but it is an important site, and F.E. Bundy, who built it, was an important guy. There was a 2-year period around when he built this building and had his offices on the 2nd floor when he sold 477 parcels in Santa Monica in a 2-year period. So he really was an influential guy, and this is kind of where his base was. And just so y'all know, he actually had retail on the ground floor, offices on the 2nd floor, and apartments on the 3rd floor, which he called the Adelaide. Yes, it's the same Adelaide as at the edge of our city. So after all that long story, what I would like to suggest, in keeping with some DCP, here they are, policies, I would like to suggest a plaque. I think that
I can't believe it. Did someone record that?
very.
Hey, Commissioner, are you okay? Is everything okay?
Did you drink before the meeting?
No, I've just been inside for too long.
Tina's been replaced by her cat.
He's still there. So basically, we have policies that it says HP 2.2A says that we should work with preservation organizations and that we should highlight city designated historic resources, including place recognition with educational components. And then policy HP 2.3 talks more specifically about signage and installations and things to engage the public about our city's history. So I think a plaque that is designed by the applicant and not one of the city's plaques that would be compatible with their really modern building would be a really great condition to add to this. I would suggest that the materials of this building need a lot of massaging. I think that there could be some, there's a lot of brick. This building was brick. At the time, it was like the strongest, sturdiest brick building ever built, which explains why it's still there 115 years later. So that's kind of the direction I'm going. Is I support the really new, modern, different feeling. I think that reducing that parapet-ish look down to 33 feet instead of 39 is a really good idea for compatibility. I personally think the DCP should have said 30 feet in the first place, as you may all recall. I made a big push for that. I think 39 is not compatible. So I think that it's much closer in the right direction, and I have to support somebody willing to take a chance on our downtown to make something happen there. So that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you. I have Commissioner Raskin in the queue and then Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to express that I'm sympathetic to a point raised by Commissioner Fondavanardi regarding displacement and loss of long-time tenancies for small businesses. And I think this is part of a broader discussion that's beyond the scope of what we're doing tonight, but definitely something that will continue to be part of a broader conversation as we continue the recovery from COVID. And I'm really sad to hear that the businesses that are there might be leaving for other reasons. All that being said, I trust that the applicant has taken a hard look at how they can make this project work and really make the best use of the site. I too would love to see housing created if possible, but I trust that has been looked at by the applicant and probably is not possible given the dynamics of the site. And all that being said, I'm generally in favor of the project, and I'm willing to make a motion to move this along if necessary.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. When I first saw it, for one thing, I'm in shock, Commissioner Fresco. She's the one who's dropped nostalgia. I had kind of a hard time with it, and I don't like the Apple building, and I remember there was controversy about the building that came down, whatever they did to it, what have you, and replaced it with a big piece of glass. And I had kind of had the same problem with this building. I really like the J. Crew building up the street and the old Pottery Barn building because there's some breakup in the facade of all glass, but they're also much bigger sites. So when the applicant said this was 42 feet, that resonated with me. I think it would look weird if you started cutting up the facade with pillars or whatever. It's just not a big enough site. So I've accepted the glass. I actually really kind of like the transparency. Kind of cool. In terms of housing on the third floor, I mean, do you have any idea how much that housing would cost? If it was even feasible? I mean, if people didn't like the high-end condos at the Miramar, they're really going to love this. And it's basically a very small space. They're going to have to basically recapture an income what they would otherwise have gotten from retail or office, which would mean the housing would be very, very expensive. They would have no inclusionary requirement. So we'd have, very expensive penthouses on the promenade. And lastly, I just want to say that this is almost like a plot. I mean, what's there now is so horrible that anything replacing it would be acceptable to the city. It was almost like people had that in mind when they did what they did to the facade of that building. It's very clever. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
So I just would like to, I just made a couple of comments and then maybe we can get to a motion because it sounds like we have the elements of it. On the idea of the roof deck, I am very sympathetic to, expanding the solar panel coverage, particularly if it will contribute to reducing the energy in the building. But I would want to make sure that it doesn't completely destroy the possibility of a roof deck, because I think that's an interesting use. I think it's an attractive use. I think it gives some character to the project, and I actually am noticing that there are really two, if I'm not mistaken, there are kind of two opportunities for the roof deck because there is a front deck, that front terrace. So it really kind of has the possibility of making the building alive, and I like that. So But I would like, and I'm looking for language, and I'd be happy to hear from colleagues. I would like that alley facing wall not to take us backward from Promenade 3.0. I get that it's not going to get us there. I get that the code currently prevents us from a more creative resolution. But as it's been presented to us, you know, if there are buildings further down that alley that are trying to be more engaging to the public, walking past the building the way it's presented to us it's just very daunting. And it's the second building in from the street, so it's going to be quite visible. I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm thinking about, I grew up in Santa Monica with the Jane Gold murals. It was one of her first murals, well before she did the Muir Woods mural at the JCC Bay Cities building on 26th and Santa Monica, where you had kind of art abstract images of people and lower buildings that kind of gave you a different view of that building and of space at 26th and Santa Monica. So, you know, I do think there's great potential for the right kind of mural, but if ARB has other suggestions for how to make that space look more welcoming, I'd really like to see that happen. So, those are real. I don't really have more comments beyond that, since we seem to have addressed the bike access issue. Commissioner Fresco.
May I make a motion?
Please, and it sounds like Commissioner Raskin might second it.
I move to approve this project. I would like to add a condition that the project will include a plaque on the promenade-facing elevation of the structure that acknowledges the historic significance of the site for its association with F.E. Bundy, a realtor and a developer whose work had significant impact on the growth of the city in the early decades of the 20th century. As far as the ARB conditions, I would like to simplify them. I spent a lot of time looking at what they were asking the applicant to do and how they were asking them to do it. And I tried to address what the problems were instead of making solutions necessarily, or prescribing solutions. They were concerned about the ground floor being so open, and so I was going to suggest that they address or consider addressing the imbalance of the concentration of detail of the building. I think the reason it doesn't look rounded, there's a lot of stuff going on the top half and not so much going on the bottom half. And I think they can figure out how to make that balance feel more satisfying. I think they need to simplify the materials palette and to consider that the finishes on the interior of the building are so visible that they need to be able to relate to the exterior. And I would add that materials that relate to the fabric of historic buildings and not mall buildings on the promenade would be a better choice. And then conditions that are on here already for the ARB to consider was how a store brand name would be achieved on the all-glass facade on the second floor. I think that, you know, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility on how a tenant can do that, so I'll let them think about that. Considering a mechanism for shading would be a thing to provide. And they suggested to activate the alley. And in reference to what Commissioner Landris noted, to consider perhaps a mural, some transparency, or some other effort in what tiny way they can towards the goals of Promenade 3.0 for alleys. And then Commissioner Fonda Bernardi asked to double the solar panels on the roof. So I would, I guess we can't require that, so that would have to go into the project description, which the applicant has said they would agree to. So that's my motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi has seconded it. May I ask, so just on the alley piece, activate the alley consistent with the goals for alleys of the Promenade 3.0 plan, including but not limited to a mural and transparencies?
Well, he has to have a solid wall, he said.
Yeah, I mean, he was saying, maybe those doors have windows in them. I don't know. But, I wouldn't, I would just say consider a mural or transparencies. And
yeah, there you go. But I appreciated your point. Activate the alley consistent with the goals for alleys of the Promenade 3.0 plan. So we're giving the ARB something to tie it to specifically.
Right, and they might not be able to do any of it, and I don't want them to be stopped.
Something to add. And I think it's important to remember that building right in front of it, in the middle of the promenade, I can't remember, kiosk, whatever.
It's not 3.0.
That's going to be gone.
Right.
Right. That's right. And so they've been responsive to that building that's going away potentially. So.
Yeah. And there was another thing in here that before that really bugged me, which isn't really part of the motion, but I just have to say that somewhere I read that they were being asked to consider responding to the proportions of the two buildings on either side. And those are the last two buildings I think they should be responding to. So
all right, any other comments before we vote?
Sorry.
Chair, if I may, just as a procedural issue, may I ask if the commission maybe would consider just asking the applicant if those new conditions are acceptable? It just may be helpful just to have that input.
For the record, yes, that's a great idea.
Hi, it's John Reed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the sun shading, this building actually, believe it or not, faces north. We did a whole sunshade analysis, which is in your package. So I'm hoping that sun shading or screening on a retail building doesn't make much sense when you want to sell merchandise. So that was a concern that we had. Sun shading on the rear facade makes a lot of sense because it faces, more towards south. But on the promenade side, I would hope that we could not have that. Other than that, yes, I think all the conditions are acceptable.
And do you feel you can add the PV without killing the roof deck?
If it's doubling the area, I think that's fine, as long as it's doubling the area.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Fresco.
I would be okay with
Yeah.
not referencing sun shading in the actual DOA. So.
It would look really stupid with awnings.
Say again?
Yeah, so.
It would look really stupid with awnings.
Yeah.
So we'll delete that bullet. Consider mechanism for shading, simply delete the bullet.
Right.
Right, okay. And it's a minor thing, it's a Scrivener's thing. There's a missing bullet in front of the word integration, which should be 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet.
To clarify, I was suggesting replacing all of these with those 3 findings that are, or areas. I was simplifying because a lot of these things are really, really specific, make the front look more like the back, add solids, right. So I was suggesting making it much more general, simplify materials, balance the concentration of detail, to, create a different effect of the building, those kinds of things.
Do you, just to staff, do you have those? Want to make sure staff feels comfortable that it has its new bullet list?
Yeah, so just so So you're replacing all of the bullets in number 1 with 3. So I have 3, just if I could just read this back. It's to address the imbalance of the concentration of detail in the building. Simplify materials consistent with the fabric of the promenade. I think that's what I heard. And then the third one was consider how to activate the alley consistent with the goals for alleys of the Promenade 3.0, including but not limited to murals or transparencies.
One other thing about the materials, I said also to make sure the interior materials and the exterior materials are tied together or relate.
Because they are so visible from the promenade. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do want to note the ARB doesn't have purview over interiors of buildings, but certainly that's a direction that we could share. But I just want to make sure that's understood.
Right. Okay. Well, these aren't in stone; they're just recommendations anyway.
And then we're deleting. Okay. And then the 2 other things were the applicant agreed with the condition to double the area of solar panels on the roof, and then also to install a plaque on the promenade facing elevation commemorating F.E. Bundy.
Yes.
Those are the,
And just to of course, the Santa Monica Conservancy would be delighted to assist them with that.
They should be paid $20,000 to do it.
Well, actually, I haven't asked them if they want to do that, but I'm sure they would.
Right. Okay.
I have a point of information. Nina, is the Bundy we're talking about the same one for whom the street was named, or is it a different one of the other 4 Bundys?
Yes, that street is his Bundy. He was really active in Sawtell also, and he actually built another brick building almost exactly like this on what is today Bundy and Santa Monica Boulevard.
And was Adelaide a person?
A daughter.
Wow.
But he had 3 brothers who were also really active, and C.L. Bundy is the one who did North of Montana, became proper partners with Gillis and all that. And then he had another brother who was married to Mae Sutton, the big tennis star.
Right.
And the family came to Santa Monica in 1876, the year after the founding. They were a big deal.
She's the show answer man.
Meet the Bundys. Meet the Bundys, I guess.
Yeah. I wrote a book that belonged to the Bundy family.
Are we ready to vote, or?
We are.
Let's do it. Can we have a roll call, please?
Okay. Did we actually have a motion and a second? I don't think
we did. That was a motion from Commissioner Fresco, and it was seconded by Commissioner Fonda Bernardi.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that was a motion for the DRP. And will you bring back the STOA, or are we good to go?
I think we have very precise language on the STOA, so if the commission is comfortable, we'll call both votes, or we'll do them separately. So this is just for the DR.
This is
Commissioner Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert?
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Yes.
And Chair Landris?
Yes. And may we assign the motion and the second to Commissioners Fresco and Fonda Bernardi for the STOA? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay. And clarifying before we vote, Jing, you referenced Mr. Bundy, but you didn't reference the additional language that Commissioner Fresco, I think, wanted noted, which is why Mr. Bundy was important. So does the STOA stop at Bundy, or can we incorporate by reference the language that Commissioner Fresco mentioned?
That one part, I actually read. Yeah, that thing about Bundy and the plaque, I actually wrote in advance and read, and I can send that to Jing. The other stuff.
It's on the record.
Read that into the record one more time.
The project shall include a plaque on the promenade facing the elevation of the structure to acknowledge the historic significance of the site for its association with F.E. Bundy, a realtor and developer whose work had a significant impact on the growth of the city in the early decades of the 20th century.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Lambert.
I was just clapping.
Oh. Jing, you've got that, so you can get it on the tape later, I suppose. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
This is for the STOA.
Yes.
Commissioner Fondo Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
and Chair Landris.
Yes. And that concludes item 10B, and in fact concludes our business for the evening. So thanks to everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks for our next regular, weekly, but it'll still be at the special time of 5:30 for the next Planning Commission.
Okay.
And we are adjourned unless.
Good job, Sean.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Bye.
Thank you very much.